There comes a moment, quiet and subtle, like the wind brushing against the leaves of a tree at twilight, when your soul begins to whisper truths your mind has long refused to hear. In that stillness, a deeper part of you knows, truly knows, that what you've carried, what you've clung to, what you've called your story, has never been your prison. It was your permission to stay in pain, your permission to be right, your permission to keep reliving an identity that has long expired. But now, in this moment of sacred listening, your spirit is inviting you to something higher, not to fix the story, not to explain it, not to relive it once more, but to lay it down, to choose peace over history. The past is not calling for your loyalty. It is not your home, nor is it your identity. It is a trail of smoke that disappears the moment you stop chasing it. It has no power unless you bring it into the present with your thoughts, your attachments, your resistance. You see, suffering is not the result of what happened. It is the result of your refusal to release what happened. And in that resistance, you lose the present, you lose your power, and you lose yourself. We are not here to rehearse our wounds. We are not here to perfect our pain. We are here to awaken to the truth of who we are. Eternal souls wrapped in temporary form, light draped in the costume of memory. And memory, while beautiful when honored, becomes poison when worshipped. When you identify with your history, you become bound by it. You take the pain and make it personal. You say, this is who I am. This is why I cannot change. This is why I do what I do. But who told you that you must keep bleeding just because you were once cut? What if you no longer needed to explain your suffering to justify your existence? What if your healing didn't need an audience or applause or even agreement? What if the highest form of wisdom was not found in understanding the past, but in releasing it? The ego loves history. It feeds on it. It builds altars around your identity and carves the statue of yourself from the stone of yesterday. It wants you to stay loyal to your wound, because the wounded ego is a powerful excuse. It keeps you smaller than your spirit. It tells you, you've been hurt, you've been wronged. They need to understand, they need to apologize, then you will be free. But freedom is not a transaction, it's a surrender. It's not waiting on others, it's waiting on you. You, the soul behind the mask, the awareness behind the story, the light behind the wound. You are not your history. You are not your pain. You are not even your healing. You are the space in which all of it arises, and you are free to choose peace. You see, peace is not earned. It is claimed. It is not found in the retelling of your trauma or the justification of your anger or the analysis of your past. Peace is what enters when your mind becomes quiet enough to stop rehearsing old roles. It's what fills the room when you stop trying to make sense of why it all happened. Peace doesn't wait for your past to make sense, it waits for you to let go. The moment you no longer need your history to explain you is the moment you are free. And perhaps that's the secret most never learn, that the greatest healing doesn't come from understanding, it comes from unburdening. It comes from emptying yourself of the story you keep carrying like sacred scripture, as if it alone defines your worth. But your worth is not born of suffering. It is born of being, of existence, of essence. You were worthy before anything happened. You are worthy now, and nothing from the past, no matter how intense, how unjust, how personal, can take that away, unless you let it. We are trained to believe that closure must come from the outside, that others must apologize, that life must repay us, that justice must be served. But the soul plays by different rules. The soul whispers, let go. Release the need for understanding. Drop the need to be right. Because true peace comes not when the world finally agrees with your story, but when you no longer need it to. This is the deep turning point when your soul, tired of dragging history like a weight, finally decides that peace is the only thing worth protecting. Not pride, not narrative, not revenge. Peace. To choose peace over history is not to deny what happened. It is to deny it power over you. It is to honor it, thank it, and release it. It is to look at the pain and say, you taught me, but you do not own me. It is to open your arms and declare, I am no longer rehearsing a life I've already outgrown. The wake does not drive the boat, and yet so many live backwards, letting the ripple of what was determine the direction of what is. But life, in its infinite mercy, gives you the gift of now a fresh canvas, an unspoken song, a breath untainted by memory. The divine does not hold grudges. It does not keep score. It only flows endlessly, lovingly, unconditionally toward your awakening. And so must you. Let this be the moment when you loosen your grip on the rope of identity. Let this be the hour you set down the story you've been guarding like treasure and realize it was never the truth. It was a doorway, a chapter, a path to lead you to this truth, that you are more than what was done to you. You are more than what you lost. You are more than who hurt you, what you missed, or how long you suffered. You are a divine being, not broken, not behind, not late, not lost, just remembering. There is no healing in history. There is only memory. And memory, unless transmuted, becomes the chain that binds you. You don't need to relive it. You need to release it. You don't need to understand it. You need to rise above it. You don't need to prove anything. You need to come home to the truth that was never wounded to begin with. You are the awareness behind the wound, not the wound itself. You are the sky, not the weather, the soul, not the story. You can stop carrying it now. You can set it down, not because it didn't matter, but because you finally do. You don't need more time to heal. You need less resistance to the healing that has already begun. You are not waiting on life. Life is waiting on you. Waiting for you to stop arguing with what was and start allowing what is. Waiting for you to stop defining yourself by your detour and realize that nothing was ever off track. The path, the pain, the pause, it all pointed you back to presence, and presence is peace. Presence is the end of the story and the beginning of truth. What would it feel like to wake up tomorrow with no story? To not be the one who was betrayed, the one who failed, the one who always gets hurt, or the one who never gets chosen? What would it feel like to wake up not as a role, but as a soul? Not as a character in your own script, but as the consciousness watching it all unfold. This is the deep liberation. When you realize that every story about you is not you, that even the most painful identity is just that, an identity, a mask, a learned role played on the stage of time. But who you are, in truth, is timeless. And timelessness cannot be hurt, cannot be defined, cannot be contained by a past that was never yours to keep. You are the one who notices the storm, not the storm itself. You are the stillness beneath every wave of emotion. You are the breath between the thoughts that say, I am broken. You are not broken. You are becoming. Every ending you feared was actually a beginning in disguise. Every loss was a sacred excavation. Life was not trying to hurt you, it was trying to hollow you, to make space, to soften the shell of ego so your spirit could finally shine through. And all along, you were mistaking the breaking for punishment. But the breaking was the invitation. The very thing that shattered you was the thing that cracked the illusion, that let the light get in and let the truth get out. Now is the time to stop repeating. Stop explaining. Stop negotiating your worth with the past. Stop living as if your history has more truth than your soul. Your story has no power unless you breathe life into it. You've already survived it. Now let it dissolve. Let it drift like fog in the morning sun. You don't need to let go of the past because there is nothing to hold on to. You're clenching smoke and calling it identity. You're holding ash and calling it memory. And it hurts not because it's still happening, it hurts because you won't stop reliving it in your mind. The prison was never real. Only your belief in the bars made them feel solid. And yet, here you are, breath moving, heart beating, spirit stirring alive, not despite the past, but because you were never meant to live there. Life has been whispering again and again, come back, come home, come inward. The story is loud, but peace is patient. And peace will wait until you're ready to stop trying to be right and start being free. Imagine a bird refusing to fly because it remembers a cage. That's what we do when we let our history define our direction. But history cannot touch the present unless you let it. The soul does not remember wounds. It remembers wholeness. It remembers light. It remembers the truth that cannot be taken, cannot be dimmed, cannot be undone. You are not here to relive what you were meant to outgrow. You are here to transform, to alchemize, to take the raw material of what happened and turn it into wisdom, into compassion, into presence, but never into identity. The moment you decide to stop defining yourself by what happened, you begin to remember what has always been true, that you are the awareness behind the events, not the events themselves, that your being is untouched by time, that your value is not found in validation or vindication or even victory, but in the quiet peace of knowing you belong to something higher than history. You belong to the now, and the now needs no story. Peace lives where the story ends. Peace lives where the mind surrenders and the soul breathes. Peace is the permission you give yourself to stop defending your pain. It is the soft inner light that rises the moment you say, I am done trying to win an old war. Because every time you replay what hurt you, you reopen the wound. Every time you explain why you are the way you are, you reinforce the lie that your history made you. It didn't. You made you. Your choices, your awakenings, your willingness to rise. You are not who they said you were. You are not what they did to you. You are not even what you did in reaction to them. You are the quiet power behind it all. You are the one who chose to get back up. You are the one who chose to seek truth. You are the one who chose peace or is choosing it now. And that choice is everything. Because in that choice, you become the creator again. You reclaim your voice, not to shout your story louder, but to sing your soul song, a song of silence, of release, of deep grounding joy. The joy that comes not from fixing the past, but from no longer needing to. You see, healing is not about becoming someone new. It's about letting go of everything that is not truly you. The layers of narrative, the burden of roles, the voice that says you must suffer in order to be seen. That voice is not yours. That voice is ego dressed in spiritual language. But truth does not shout. Truth doesn't demand attention. Truth simply is. And when you are still enough to hear it, you remember you've always been whole. There is no need to explain your healing, no need to prove your growth, no need to convince anyone of your peace. Peace is its own proof. It radiates, it softens, it frees. And if they never understand you, so what? If they never apologize, so be it. If the world never acknowledges what you went through, let it pass. Your peace does not depend on their permission. Your peace depends on your release. You can drop it now. Let the story fall away like autumn leaves from a tree that no longer needs to carry the past into the winter. The tree does not mourn the falling leaf. It celebrates the clearing. So too must you. Celebrate what you no longer carry. Celebrate what no longer owns you. Celebrate the sacred emptiness that makes space for the soul to speak again. You are not empty because you let go. You are empty so that truth can finally fill you. And the truth is this: you have always been enough, always been whole, always been free. You just forgot. And now you remember. The world around you is not waiting for your explanation, it's waiting for your embodiment. Life responds not to your wounds, but to your willingness. And the universe does not heal through repetition, it heals through surrender. When you stop telling the story, you stop bleeding from it. When you stop rehearsing the reasons, you begin to remember the truth beneath them all, that you were never the one in need of fixing. You were the one remembering wholeness beneath the noise. You've spent years building scaffolding around your pain with thoughts, beliefs, conditions, and justifications, and none of it made you freer. It only made your prison more elaborate. It only made your history feel more personal, but it was never personal. Nothing that has ever happened to you has touched the essence of who you are. It could not, because what you are cannot be harmed. It can only be hidden behind layers of noise, behind identity, behind a history that you now realize you do not need. The soul does not care who was right. The soul only asks, can you be free? Can you choose liberation over explanation? Can you be the one who lets it go, not because it was okay, but because you are? Can you walk away from the ruins of your past, not as a survivor, but as a witness of grace? Forgiveness, true forgiveness, is not something you give to another. It is the gift you give to your own nervous system. It is the moment you decide, I will no longer let this experience dictate the energy of my life. It is the soft miracle that happens when your spirit speaks louder than your memory. It is not a reward for the past. It is an offering to the present. And understand this, your spiritual power lies not in how much you know, but in how much you release. It lies not in the complexity of your story, but in the simplicity of your surrender. The more you let go, the lighter you become. The more you choose peace, the clearer you see. The ego holds, the spirit flows, and every time you flow, you return home. You see, this whole life is not about collecting experiences. It is about unlearning the ones that told you you were less than divine. It's about stripping away every voice that told you your peace must be earned. You were never here to perform for healing. You are here to realize that healing is not something you chase, it's something you allow. It's something that rises when you stop believing that you are your history. Because you are not. You are the sky before the clouds. You are the stillness before the storm. You are the I am that echoes before any name, any story, any label was placed upon you. You are not your timeline. You are not your wounds. You are not the echoes of trauma or the shadows of childhood. You are now, and now is always unburdened. Now is always free. Every time you remember this, every time you breathe and choose stillness over reaction, truth over identity, forgiveness over explanation, you come closer to yourself. Not the self you invented to survive, but the self that existed before survival was ever needed. The self that smiles without reason, the self that watches without judgment, the self that loves without memory. This is the sacred undoing, the unraveling of everything you were taught to believe in order to reveal what you have always been. And so I invite you, right here, right now, to become light, to become so free within that no thought, no history, no opinion can touch your peace. Let your heart be the sanctuary. It was always meant to be not a courtroom for replaying old verdicts, but a temple for silence, for softness, for serenity. There is no version of peace that requires you to keep justifying your suffering. There is no version of freedom that includes dragging your past into every conversation. And there is no version of awakening that keeps your identity anchored to the pain you've already outgrown. You've done enough. You've proven enough. You've explained enough. Now be still, let it go. Watch what happens when you stop being loyal to your history and start being loyal to your peace. Watch how life reorganizes itself around your release. Watch how your body heals when you no longer rehearse the harm. Watch how your energy shifts when you no longer argue for your limitations. It was never about the other person. It was never about the apology that never came. It was about you finally deciding that your inner landscape deserves the quiet that only comes when you choose peace over proof. Peace over story. Peace over pride. Peace over performance. You are not here to fix your history. You are here to awaken from it. You are here to remember that the soul's language is not made of memory, but of presence. Not of pain, but of possibility. And not of who you were, but of what you are becoming. You don't need to wait another year. You don't need another therapist, another book, another retreat. You don't need more time. You just need one courageous breath where you decide that your life begins not with your pain, but with your choice to stop carrying it. The mind will protest. The ego will scream. But let it, because beneath the noise, beneath the pull to go back into the old story, your soul is waiting in silence, in stillness, in truth, for you to remember that you've always had the power to choose a new path. Not by force, not by fixing, but by releasing, by becoming empty enough to be filled with light again. Let that be your offering. Let that be your rebirth. Not with fireworks, not with fanfare, but with a quiet, holy yes. A yes to peace, a yes to freedom, a yes to now. What a relief it is to no longer perform for your worth. What a liberation to no longer need the world to echo back what your heart has always known, that you are not broken, not behind, not bound. You are not the sum of your reactions. You are not a title carved from trauma. You are presence itself, wearing the brief mask of a life story that no longer fits. There is a sacred courage in releasing the familiar pain, because even suffering can become comfortable when it becomes identity. Even misery can feel like home when you've lived in it long enough. And yet, there comes a day, quiet, sacred, unremarkable to the world, when your soul whispers, I can't do this anymore. Not because it's too hard, but because it's no longer true. You stop blaming, you stop defending, you stop needing to be understood. And in that moment, you are reborn. You begin to see that no one ever truly held you back except your agreement with their vision of you. You thought they had power, you thought their words mattered, but it was your belief that gave them meaning. It was your attachment to the story that gave it roots. And now you are remembering stories only live when they are fed. Stop feeding the old tale and it starves. Stop rehearsing the pain and it fades. You do not heal by digging deeper into the narrative. You heal by rising above it. You heal when you stop believing that your history is holy. You heal when you stop needing your pain to prove your strength. You heal when you stop defining your identity by what hurts you and start defining it by what frees you. And freedom, real freedom, is always simple. It's the moment you walk out of your own cage and realize the door was never locked. You were never waiting on time to pass. You were waiting on permission, and that permission was always yours to give. So give it now. Give yourself the permission to be happy without justification, to feel peace without resolving every detail, to be free without having to explain to the world why you deserve it. You deserve it because you are, not because of what you've survived, not because of what you've lost, not because of what you've learned. You deserve it because you are life itself. You are awareness unbothered, undamaged, eternal. The stories came later, and they will go when you no longer worship them. Let go of the altar you built around your suffering. Let go of the temple you built around being misunderstood. You were never meant to dwell in the echo of pain. You were meant to rise radiant and soft in the silence beyond it. And what is peace, truly, but the end of your allegiance to pain? What is peace but the moment you say, I choose stillness, even if I was right? What is peace but choosing not to carry the weight of being wounded into every interaction, every relationship, every dream. History wants you to repeat it. Peace invites you to release it. And your soul, ageless, formless, infinite, is asking you now, which will you choose? Because you do choose. Every day, with every thought, with every emotional rehearsal of the past, with every silent agreement you make, with a version of you that no longer fits. Choose again. Choose peace. Choose it not once, but over and over when you're triggered, when you're tired, when you're tempted to explain, to justify, to defend. Choose it when the old story knocks and says, let me back in. Choose it when your ego says, they need to know how much you've suffered. Choose it when your memory tries to seduce you with the false comfort of being right. Choose peace over being right. Choose presence over performance. Choose becoming over blaming. This is not weakness. This is spiritual strength, because it takes no power to hold a grudge. It takes no wisdom to replay a wound. It takes no vision to argue for your past. But it takes divine maturity to say, I will not carry this any longer. I will not breathe life into this pain again. I will not shrink myself to stay inside a story that dims my soul. And make no mistake, peace is not the absence of conflict, but the absence of identification. Peace is what remains when you stop believing the thoughts that keep you in chains. Peace is your natural state. It is not found in retreat centers or mantras or books, though they may guide you there. Peace is found in the stillness between thoughts, in the soft exhale after you've let go, in the presence that remains when identity falls away. You are not becoming peaceful, you are returning to what you always were. And in this return, there is no drama, no grand event, no validation from the world. There is only stillness. There is only the quiet recognition that you are finally free. You no longer need to win an argument that no longer exists. You no longer need to carry the history of a self that was never truly you. You no longer need to live your life through the lens of what happened, because what happened was only one moment in time and you are timeless. You are awareness, and awareness cannot be harmed. You are presence, and presence needs no defense. You are love, and love does not argue. So release the need to narrate your healing. Release the temptation to dress your pain in spiritual robes. Release the idea that your story must be redeemed to have meaning. It already had meaning, but the meaning was never in the pain. The meaning was in your awakening, in your surrender, in the moment you laid it all down and said, enough. I am done carrying this weight. I am done explaining my sadness. I am done performing my pain. I choose peace now. I choose silence over noise. I choose truth over story. I choose soul over ego. I choose now over history, because history can only offer memory, but now offers everything. Now offers God. Now offers healing. Now offers freedom. Now offers life. And so here you are, no longer at war with the moment, no longer demanding that the past apologize for your pain, no longer shrinking yourself to fit inside the container of a story that never deserved to hold your soul. You are standing in the doorway of now. You are at the threshold of what cannot be explained but can only be felt, the sacred space where the mind bows, the ego dissolves, and what remains is something wordless, eternal, and unmistakably you. Not the you the world named, not the you shaped by roles or reasons, not the you that needed fixing, proving, surviving, but the you that watches, the you that never leaves, the you that is always, always at peace. Do you feel it? Not in thought, but in the stillness behind the thought, in the quiet between the next breath and the last, in the moment where you finally stop reaching, stop grasping, stop trying to make the story make sense, and simply let it be. This is not resignation, it is resurrection. You are not giving up, you are giving in. Not to the past, but to the present. To the sacred unfolding of a life, no longer filtered through wounds. To the power of what happens when you stop narrating and start being. You are a divine being. Not becoming, not trying, simply being. And being in its purest form carries no story. It carries presence, it carries truth, it carries peace. What a miracle to no longer identify with the one who was wounded, but with the one who witnessed the wound and chose to wake up instead of stay asleep. What a gift to no longer keep your suffering alive, just so others will know it was real. You know, it was real. That's enough. You lived it, and now you are done reliving it. Because truth does not ask for proof. Healing does not need permission. And peace does not wait. It has been here all along, waiting for you to get tired enough of history to finally choose heaven. Not the heaven in the sky, but the heaven in your breath, in your stillness, in your presence. Do you understand now? Peace is not something you earn by fixing your past. Peace is something you remember when you no longer need to fix anything. And in that remembering, you drop the need to control, to rewrite, to validate. You allow what was to rest. You allow what is to rise. You walk through life no longer reacting, no longer defending, no longer defining your moments by yesterday's shadow. You become quiet, not because you have no words, but because you no longer need them. You become soft, not because you are weak, but because you are free. You become light, not because you chased it, but because you stopped carrying what dimmed it. This is the fruit of choosing peace over history. It's not a loud victory. It's not a spiritual badge. It's not something the world may even recognize. It is a quiet transformation, an invisible miracle, a sacred shift within the heart, where you go from narrating your life to embodying it, where you stop saying, this is who I became because of what happened, and start living as, this is who I've always been beyond what happened. You are not your scars. You are the light that shines through them. You are not your past. You are the sky that held it. You are not your healing. You are the spaciousness that allowed it. And you do not need to prove anything to be worthy of peace. You only need to say yes. Yes to letting go. Yes to being seen without the story. Yes to the you that never needed defending. Yes to the divine flow that carries you now without needing you to steer. This is what it means to be whole. Not to be perfect, not to be certain, but to be empty enough to be filled with what's real. To live your life with open hands, open heart, open awareness. To allow each moment to be what it is, no longer filtered through memory, no longer distorted by projection. Just now, just this, just peace. Because when you drop the story, what remains is always peace. And when you stop repeating history, life begins again. You can hear the birds again. You can feel the breeze again. You can see the sky for the first time in years because your mind is no longer clouded by ghosts. This is what awakening is. This is what freedom is. It is not an escape from life. It is a return to it. A wholly grounded, embodied return to the miracle of being unburdened, unchained, untold. No more rehearsing. No more explaining. No more defending. Only living. Only breathing. Only shining. So let the past go. Let the story go. Let the identity built from pain fall apart like dust in sunlight. You will not miss it. You will not need it. What rises in its place is not a better version of you, but the real one. the one who never needed the story, the one who was never waiting to be healed, the one who has always been whole. Choose peace again and again. Let it become your home, your compass, your baseline. Let it be the place you return to, not when things are easy, but especially when they are not. Because peace is not the end of your journey. Peace is the path. Peace is the teacher. Peace is the light that was always within you before the wound, before the narrative, before the noise. You were never your history. You were never your pain. You are now. You are free. And now that you remember, you will never forget again. There comes a moment in every human life where silence speaks louder than memory, when the weight you've been carrying, the burden of what happened, what didn't, what should have finally grows too heavy to justify keeping. And in that sacred moment, the soul whispers something not taught in books, not preached in temples, not heard in the noise of this busy world. It says, let it go. Not out of weakness, not because you lost, but because the story you're repeating is no longer worthy of the divine being you are becoming. We are not born with our stories. We gather them. We inherit them from those who were wounded before us. We craft them from misunderstandings, from pain, from moments when love seemed absent. And then, like a script we never agreed to, we recite them again and again. He left me. She betrayed me. They never saw me. I was never enough. This always happens to me. And so we live in the echo of what was, even while life tries with all its miracles to remind us of what is. But my friend, listen to me with the ears of your soul. You are not your history. You are not your suffering. You are not the wound. You are the healing. You see, the story is just a frame, a container, a garment worn by the ego to prove its existence. But the lesson is eternal. It's what your soul came here for. And the universe, that sacred, intelligent field of love, it does not waste experience. Everything you've walked through, everything that broke you open, everything that left you trembling in the dark was a curriculum, not a punishment, a passage, but only if you drop the story. As long as you hold the tale, the villain, the victim, the blame, you are trapped in time. Your spirit becomes entangled in yesterday's fog, and what you cannot release, you are doomed to repeat. You may say, but it's true. It happened. I was hurt. I was abandoned. I was left behind. And you are right. It did happen. But you have chosen to keep the wound alive through the repetition of its narrative. Let me offer you something radical, something freeing. Truth is not in the facts of the past. Truth is in the freedom of the present. You do not heal by replaying the moment. You heal by retrieving the power it stole. That's what it means to drop the story and keep the lesson. The story says, I was unloved. The lesson says, now I know how deeply I crave presence. I will offer that to myself. The story says, I was betrayed. The lesson says, I now see the importance of self-trust. The story says, my childhood was broken. The lesson says, I carry within me the ability to reparent, to rebuild, to renew. This isn't denial. This is transcendence. You were never meant to live forever inside the storm. You were meant to walk through it and come out cleaner, clearer, stronger. The ego will tell you that to drop the story is to let them off the hook. But the soul knows you were never meant to hold them on the hook. You were meant to free yourself. Forgiveness is not the reward for someone else's apology. It's the sacred key that opens the door to your own peace. There is a beautiful truth that every mystic, every teacher every awakened being comes to understand what happens outside of you is not who you are. You are the awareness behind the experience. You are the stillness behind the noise. You are the one who watches the storm pass, not the storm itself. And when you drop the story, something miraculous happens. You remember your divine identity. You remember that before the hurt, before the name, before the form. You were light, and light does not cling to shadows. Letting go is not forgetting. It's honoring. It's saying, I respect this chapter enough to close it. That's not weakness. It's wisdom. It's the moment you rise above the battlefield and recognize no one wins when you keep reliving your wounds. Healing does not come through analysis. It comes through surrender. You will not solve your past. You will release it. Like a bird from its cage, like a flame from the candle, like a soul from its shackles. And then you will feel it, the space, the breath, the possibility. It returns. When the story dies, the soul finally speaks. It says, you were never broken, only buried beneath beliefs. It says, this pain was never meant to define you, only to refine you. It says, there is no moment more sacred than the one you are in now. Drop the story, keep the lesson, because the lesson is gold, my friend. It's grace wrapped in fire. It's the seed of compassion, of insight, of power. It's the reason you can sit beside someone else's pain and say, I see you. I've been there. I walked through it, and I made it out. You become a healer not by fixing others, but by becoming the living proof that healing is possible. But first, you must unclench the past. Not because it doesn't matter, but because you matter more. You must return to that still, holy place within where no story, no identity, no title, no trauma can exist. Only presence, only peace, only the now. Because in the now, there are no wounds, no resentment, no regret, only this breath and the divine being breathing it. So let it go. Let the old narrative fall like autumn leaves. Let the echoes fade. Let the images dissolve. And in that clearing, in that stillness, watch what rises. It will not be bitterness. It will not be fear. It will not be the voice of the past demanding your loyalty. It will be you, the real you, the untouched you, the soul that chose this life not to be defined by its suffering, but to alchemize it into light. And from that light, you will speak new words. Not words of pain, but of power. Not stories of survival, but songs of resurrection. This is the sacred invitation. Drop the story, keep the lesson, and become the truth beneath it all. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become from it. And my dear friend, you were always meant to become free. And so here you are, standing at the edge of who you've been and who you're becoming, a quiet threshold, a sacred moment not marked by applause or ceremony, but by something deeper, a choice not to fight the past, not to defend it, but to release your identification with it. It's tempting to believe the old story keeps you safe, that if you keep it close, you won't forget, you won't be hurt again. But that's not safety, that's stagnation. Life, in its infinite wisdom, is always asking you to evolve, to rise, to return. And to return, you must empty your hands. You cannot receive the gifts of this moment with fingers clenched around yesterday. You must become willing to live undefended, to open the door and walk naked into the now unarmored, unburdened, unafraid. Because life doesn't meet you where you were. It meets you where you are. When you drop the story, you become available again. Available to love, available to grace, available to a version of yourself that your old wounds would have never believed possible. And perhaps that is the point. To stop identifying as the wounded one and start remembering you are the witness. You are the one who sees not just what happened, but what is happening now. Look around you. Notice the breeze. Feel your breath. Sense the silence beneath these words. There is a field of being here still, sacred, waiting, and in that field, there is no need for defense, for comparison, for memory. There is only awareness. And from that awareness, forgiveness becomes possible. Not as a favor to the past, but as a gateway to the present. Forgiveness is the great unclenching. It is the moment you stop trying to re-script what happened and instead begin writing a new truth, one authored by your awakening, not your agony. You see, when you drop the story, you do not erase your life. You finally begin to live it. You are not here to be right about what hurts you. You are here to become free from it. You are not here to convince others of your pain. You are here to transmute it into power. And that transformation does not require a courtroom. It requires only your willingness to let the light in. The light doesn't need your defense. It only needs your surrender. Let go of the illusion that you must carry everything forward, that every scar must be visible, that every betrayal must be remembered. The soul remembers differently. It does not store stories. It stores lessons and love, and even the most painful moments, once seen through the eyes of the soul, become holy. They become teachers, messengers, gateways to depth, to empathy, to truth. There is a reason why those who've suffered often shine with the most compassion. Because once the story is dropped, only love remains. Not naive love, but earned love. The kind that says, I have walked through the fire, and I no longer need to fear the flame. You become a lighthouse. Not because your waters were always calm, but because you learn to shine anyway. That is the alchemy. To stop needing anyone to pay. To stop trying to make it fair. And instead, to become whole. You cannot become whole while holding the pieces of the past, like proof of injury. You become whole when you place them down and remember that nothing essential was ever truly broken. You've always had your wholeness. It was just waiting beneath the noise. Drop the story and watch what returns to you. Joy, not happiness manufactured by circumstance, but the quiet joy of being, of knowing you don't have to carry it anymore, that your worth was never tied to your struggle. Peace. Not the fragile kind that comes from controlling others, but the lasting kind that blooms when you stop controlling yourself. Love, not the kind that begs to be rescued, but the kind that is the rescue. When the story is gone, you become available to life again, to the sunrise, to the laughter of children, to the grace hidden in ordinary moments. You find yourself smiling for no reason. You find yourself crying, not from sorrow, but from the sudden beauty of existence. You begin to remember that your life was never meant to be a courtroom of memory. It was always meant to be a temple of presence, and presence does not argue with the past. It breathes. So breathe into this moment. Breathe into the stillness that asks for nothing but your presence. You don't have to relive the wound. You don't have to prove the pain. You are allowed to let go without permission. You are allowed to be free now. This moment doesn't need your story. It needs your surrender. And when you surrender, the lesson comes forward. It rises like light from beneath the rubble. It hums with truth, with grace, with the gentle wisdom of your highest self. You are not who they said you were. You are not the sum of what they did. You are not the echo of the moment you broke. You are the quiet strength that rose. You are the healing that began. You are the lesson, not the loss. And you are here now, not by accident, but by design, to live, to love, to awaken. Drop the story, my friend. Let it fall like an old robe. Let it dissolve like a name you no longer answer to, because you were never that story. You were always free. There is a moment in every awakening where the soul begins to question not just the past, but the identity born from it. Not the events, not the memories, but the personality that was built to survive them. You see, the story does not only live in your words, it lives in your habits, in your posture, in your self-talk, in the way you tighten when someone gets too close, or in the way you chase achievement, hoping it will finally hush that old inner voice that once said you weren't enough. The story becomes a costume. It wears you. And after a while, you forget it was ever a choice. You call it me, my personality, my edge, my wounds. But it's not you. It's the version of you that rose to defend the most tender parts of your spirit. The child who stopped asking for love. The teenager who stopped trusting softness. The adult who learned how to perform, achieve, impress just to feel seen. The story taught you those strategies. And for a time, they served you. They protected the innocent part of your being until you were strong enough to return and claim it. But now, you are strong enough. Now you can feel the exhaustion beneath your masks. Now you can hear the whispers of the soul beneath the noise of your proving. And the soul says, softly, always softly, you can take it off now. You don't have to be the character anymore. You can come home. This is not about rejecting your past. It's about reclaiming yourself from it. Because the real you, the one you came here to embody, is not the survival strategy. It is the sacred essence that existed before the story and will exist after every narrative dissolves. Let me tell you something the world rarely says out loud. You don't need more improvement. You don't need more achievement. You don't need more validation. You need more truth. And the truth is this: you were always worthy. You were always enough. You were always whole. Not because you earned it, not because you achieved spiritual perfection, but because you were created from something sacred. Call it God, call it source, call it life, universe, or divine intelligence. But know this: what made you does not make mistakes. And it did not put you here to carry wounds like trophies. You are not here to be a monument to what happened. You are here to be a channel for what's possible. And what is possible, dear soul, is peace. Not the peace of silence in a quiet room, but the peace of knowing you are not chained to the past. Not the peace of others liking you, but the peace of liking yourself enough to let go. This is the revolution. Not outside, but within, where you look at your reflection and finally say, I am not the events that shaped me. I am the spirit that chose to grow through them. You begin to recognize the difference between pain and identity. You begin to feel the quiet ache of self-betrayal every time you shrink to match your old story. And slowly, courage is born. Not loud, not flashy, but steady. The courage to let love in again. The courage to admit that your old armor is too small. The courage to imagine that maybe, just maybe, freedom is not found in controlling the future or analyzing the past, but in being fully here. You begin to tell the truth not to others first, but to yourself. You begin to notice when you're reenacting the old roles. You begin to ask, Who am I when I'm not performing? Who am I when I'm not protecting? Who am I when I'm not trying to be what others expect? And the answers are breathtaking. You find softness. You find strength. You find a depth of being that cannot be captured in a story, only lived in presence. You discover that joy does not come from fixing what was, it comes from loving what is. You begin to see beauty in strange places, in the way your breath returns after a deep sigh, in the way the sunlight lands on a quiet room, in the way a tear rolls down your cheek, not from sadness, but from relief. The relief of no longer needing to carry it all. You can be gentle now with yourself, with the past, with others who are still lost in their own stories, because you know something they don't yet. That pain does not make you special. It makes you human. And being human is not a flaw, it's the doorway to divine awareness. Only in this human form can you practice compassion. Only in this human heart can you learn forgiveness. Only in this human mind can you choose to see with the eyes of spirit. So choose to drop the narrative that says, I'll be free when. Choose to release the belief that your story must be understood by everyone else. Choose to trust that your healing is your own and it is enough. This is the quiet miracle, not lightning bolts, not sudden transformation, but the steady unfolding of a new way of being where you no longer have to be the one who was hurt. You can now be the one who woke up. And waking up means you don't need to relive it. You don't need to perform it. You don't need to justify it. You just live as freedom. You begin to walk not toward wholeness, but from it. You speak not to prove anything, but to bless everything. You look at the world with eyes that see beyond form, beyond ego, beyond role, and into essence. Because you've seen yourself that way. And now nothing else will satisfy. So bless the past. Bow to the teachers that gave you. Thank the storm for carving rivers into your soul. And then release it, like breath, like birds, like prayers whispered into wind. Because what's ahead is not more repetition, but revelation. Not more pain, but peace. Not more story, but self. You are not here to repeat. You are here to remember. Remember who you were before the world told you who to be. Remember what it feels like to breathe without guilt, to love without fear, to live without apology. This remembering is the holy work of a lifetime. And it begins not with a battle, but with surrender. So surrender now. Surrender the identity that survived. And let the soul that thrives lead. And now, as the dust of all your retellings begins to settle, as the courtroom of memory closes its weary doors, as the heart, once guarded by storylines and scar tissue, finally exhales, you arrive. You arrive not in some polished version of yourself, not in some far-off enlightened state, but here now, raw, unburdened, and awake. You are not stepping into a future. You are stepping out of a prison. And that prison was never your pain. It was the identity you wrapped around it. It was the belief that the wound defined you, that the scar was your signature. But now, like a snake shedding its skin, you feel it loosening. The old story, the character you played so convincingly, the mask that once protected you now simply itches, and beneath it all is you, the true you, not the version that flinches in self-doubt, not the version who needs applause or explanation, but the deep, aware, sacred presence who has always been watching, waiting, remembering. Can you feel the difference? The silence is no longer hollow. It is holy. The stillness is not absence. It is essence. This moment right here is not a pause in your life. It is the return of your life. You are no longer searching for meaning in your history. You are now making meaning from your healing. And this is where the story ends, not with vengeance, not with resolution, but with reverence. You begin to look back, not with resentment, but with blessing. Not because what happened was right, but because what grew from it is beautiful. You start to whisper to your past self, thank you for surviving. Thank you for carrying us here. But now you can rest because the war is over. The version of you that lived in defense is no longer needed. The version of you that fought for love, begged for recognition, cried in silence, that version has earned its peace. Let it rest. Let it dissolve like mist at sunrise. Let the old armor fall to the earth like autumn leaves, with gratitude, with gentleness, with grace. Because now you are no longer armored. You are luminous. You are no longer trying to be heard. You are listening. You are no longer performing for belonging. You are belonging to yourself. And that is the ultimate freedom. No longer performing, no longer defending, no longer explaining who you are because your presence does all the speaking. You walk into rooms not wondering how people see you, but carrying the peace of someone who sees themselves. You speak not to prove, but to offer presence. You love not to possess, but to participate in the miracle of connection without clutching, without fear. You forgive not because they asked, but because your freedom matters more than their recognition. You breathe not to calm yourself, but because your breath is now home. This is what it means to drop the story. It is not erasure. It is emancipation. It is the radical act of no longer letting your past become your prophecy. And the most extraordinary part, you do not need to try to be this way. You simply need to stop trying to be what you're not. Because underneath every story, there is a soul untouched, unchained, unshakable. That's you. That's what remains when the ego's theater closes and the light shines through the cracks in your identity. That's what God sees when you're not pretending. And in that space, you no longer need to be fixed. You only need to be felt. You no longer need permission to move on. You only need the courage to be still long enough to see you are always whole. And in this seeing, life becomes less of a race and more of a rhythm. You begin to move with the music of now, no longer trying to skip to the good part, no longer stuck on the worst chapter. You begin to live in harmony with presence. And presence, dear soul, is everything. It's the medicine. It's the altar. It's the final destination that was never far away. Presence is where you finally feel what your story never allowed you to feel. It's where the tears rise, not from pain, but from relief. It's where you look around and suddenly nothing is missing. Not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer resisting the imperfection. This is what freedom tastes like. It's not loud. It's not wild. It's not external. It is the quiet knowing that you can breathe without justifying your joy, that you can rest without guilt, that you can shine without explanation. You are no longer auditioning for peace. You are peace. You are no longer seeking love. You are love. You are no longer chasing light. You are the light revealed by the very letting go you once feared. And now, what remains? Only your soul, your quiet, radiant, sovereign soul, the you that came before the pain, the you that lived through the storm, the you that rises now, not from anger, not from shame, but from deep spiritual remembrance, that you is who you were always meant to become. Not a better version, not a fixed version, but a true version. And in that truth, you become a presence that heals without effort. A mirror for others, not of perfection, but of possibility. People will feel it. They will sense it in your stillness. They will wonder how you carry such peace, such clarity, such unshakable calm. And if they ask, you won't need to explain. You'll simply smile and say gently, I dropped the story and I kept the lesson. And in those words is a life, is a path, is a practice, is a love so deep it cannot be taught, only lived. So walk now, not in search, but in remembrance. Walk not with a plan, but with presence. Walk not as someone with something to prove, but as someone who has already arrived, because you have, this is the arrival. This is the letting go. This is the peace beyond the story. So breathe in the silence. Breathe in the freedom. Breathe in the soul you've finally come home to. Drop the story. Keep the lesson. And live, truly live as the freedom you were always destined to be.